You know how you can walk for just 10 minutes in any major city and feel like you've crossed into a totally different world? One block is buzzing and vibrant, and the next is, well, struggling. It's this wild paradox, but it's not an accident. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the hidden reasons why.
Right? It's the central contradiction of city life. There are these incredible magnets for jobs, for culture, for opportunity, but at the same time, they're home to some of the deepest inequality you'll find anywhere. How can both things be true at once? That's the question we're digging into.
And the key to unlocking this whole puzzle isn't something you can see on Google Maps. It's an invisible blueprint, this hidden layer of old rules, policies, and decisions that basically predetermine the fate of neighborhoods, sometimes for generations to come.
So, to really get what's happening in our cities today, we have to wind the clock back. We have to look at the blueprints of yesterday. Because the lines that divide our communities, well, they weren't drawn by chance. They were designed.
This timeline right here points to a really crucial and, frankly, painful chapter. It all kicks off in the 1930s, when the government didn't just allow housing discrimination, it actively engineered it. And for more than 30 years, those policies carved up our cities. It wasn't until 1968, deep in the civil rights era, that these practices were officially outlawed. But by then, the blueprint for inequality was already set in concrete.
So what exactly was redlining? Well, it was as simple and devastating as it sounds. Officials literally drew red lines on a map, and if you lived inside one of those red lines, which were almost always minority neighborhoods, you were cut off. Period. Banks wouldn't give you a loan to buy a house, they wouldn't even give you a loan to fix your own roof. It was a government-sanctioned plan to starve entire communities of investment.
And redlining didn't work alone. It had a partner in crime: blockbusting. You can see how these two tactics work together. Redlining trapped minority families in neighborhoods that were starved of resources. At the same time, real estate agents would use blockbusting to stir up panic among white homeowners, telling them to sell their houses cheap before the neighborhood changed. It was this vicious cycle that didn't just segregate cities, it actively stripped wealth from communities, all while someone else profited.
And this is not ancient history. Not at all. Those lines drawn 80 years ago, their ghosts are still here. I mean, if you take an old redlining map of a city like Detroit and lay it over a modern map showing poverty, the overlap is it's stunning. The blueprint's legacy is written right there on the modern city.
Okay, so this is way more than a history lesson, right? This blueprint has real, tangible consequences today. What does it actually feel like to live in a city that's been shaped by these invisible lines? Let's take a closer look.
What you end up with is a tale of two cities, often existing just blocks apart. On one side, you've got communities with everything: great schools, clean parks, fast emergency services. And on the other, those exact same services are often underfunded or just plain out of reach. It creates this dangerous loop where neglect leads to problems like higher crime, and then those problems are used to justify even more neglect.
The inequality even gets into the air people breathe and the water they drink. There's a term for it: environmental injustice. It's what happens when wealthier, more politically connected residents make sure that the undesirable stuff, the landfills, the sewage plants, the factories, gets built far away from them and plopped right into lower-income communities.
And these are not just abstract ideas. Look at these real-world examples. In Roswell, Georgia, wealthy neighborhoods made sure a sewage plant stayed out of their backyard. We all know about Flint, Michigan, where a community was poisoned by its drinking water. And in the most extreme case, like Chernobyl, you see the ultimate consequence of environmental disaster. An entire city becomes uninhabitable.
And this problem isn't just in the United States, it's global. Around the world, this kind of deep urban inequality can lead to the rise of squatter settlements. These are whole communities built on the literal fringes of society, often without basics like running water or electricity. They are a powerful, visible reminder of what happens when a city grows and just leaves people behind.
So what happens when cities try to fix these neglected areas? Well, that brings us to the modern-day fight for the soul of the city, and it usually revolves around two big, complicated ideas: gentrification and urban renewal.
This chart breaks it down pretty clearly. They sound similar, but they're different beasts. Gentrification tends to be more of a ground-up process, driven by private individuals and investors fixing up old places. Urban renewal is more top-down, a big government project to tear down and build new. But here's the kicker. Despite their differences, for the people who already live there, the end result can be exactly the same: displacement.
Now, to be fair, people who support gentrification have some strong economic points. They argue it brings new life and new money into struggling areas. It improves the quality of the buildings, and it grows the city's tax base, which in theory can pay for better services for everybody.
But, and this is the big but, here's the central paradox of gentrification. The very process of improving a neighborhood often ends up destroying the community it was supposed to help. As new money flows in, rents and property taxes go through the roof. Long-time lower-income residents get priced out, pushed to the edges of the city, far away from their jobs, their support networks, and all the new amenities that made the neighborhood so attractive.
So this all leads us to the most important question of all. Can we change this? Is it actually possible to redraw this invisible blueprint and build cities that are more fair for everyone?
Well, one of the biggest roadblocks right off the bat is that our governments are a mess. Power is split up between the city, the county, the state, all with their own agendas. This fragmentation makes it incredibly hard to tackle big problems that don't care about invisible political lines on a map.
But cities are trying to get creative. One of the most popular tools in their toolbox is something called inclusionary zoning. The idea is pretty simple. It's a deal with developers. You want to build that shiny new luxury apartment building? Great, but you have to set aside a certain percentage of those units for affordable housing. You're essentially trying to bake economic diversity right into new developments.
It's not a silver bullet, though, and this quote just hits the nail on the head. Okay, so maybe you can afford the subsidized rent in that new building, but can you afford the $20 salad at the cafe that just opened downstairs? True inclusion is about more than just having a roof over your head. It's about being able to actually live and participate in the neighborhood, and that's a much harder problem to solve.
And honestly, that's why some of the most exciting solutions are bubbling up from the ground up. We're seeing community gardens fighting food deserts in American cities, incredible rooftop gardens in Beijing that provide food and fight pollution, even programs in Canada where people harvest fruit from public trees for those in need. People aren't waiting for officials to hand them a new blueprint. They're starting to draw their own.
Which leaves us with the ultimate challenge. Look, growth and change in our cities are going to happen. They're inevitable. But displacement and inequality, they are not. The real question for all of us is how do we design the cities of tomorrow so that everyone, and I mean everyone, truly has a place in them?